Palau, a tiny nation in the Western Pacific Ocean, is traditionally an US ally. It's also one of just a dozen countries in the world that still maintain official ties with Taiwan. Now, as China seeks to further isolate Taiwan, Palau's tourism industry has suffered. Victoria Jen tells us more.
Palau, a tiny Pacific nation with a population of around 20,000 people, spans across 340 islands. Its coral reefs are one of the 7 underwater wonders of the world, boasting more than 300 species of coral and some 2,000 species of fish. All that makes it a popular destination for tourists from around the world. But like every other country, Palau's tourism industry took a severe hit during the 3 years when COVID-19 ravaged the world.
3, 2, 1.
When the pandemic subsided, the world slowly reopened. Taiwan became the first to launch a travel bubble with Palau in 2021. And when COVID triggered travel restrictions were lifted in much of the world, Taiwan responded by increasing the number of flights to Palau.
Palau is very beautiful. We want to keep it like that so we don't touch, take, or break. We don't want to touch the coral. It's very delicate. Even a little touch like this will kill those little polyps.
Despite Taiwan's efforts, Palau's tourism recovery still falls short. The number of foreign visitors is less than 1/10 of the pre-pandemic levels. One group is conspicuously missing. Vance Policarp owns a diving center in Palau. He has been struggling to keep his business afloat.
Almost 95% of our business is from mainland China. So any disruptions or interference to that market impacts us. So the boycott, yes, I understood why there was a boycott, but at the same time it kind of impacted me, and I'm kind of like, it is what it is. Hopefully that in the future that we can, work something out that where everybody can live happily ever,
Chinese tourists have stopped coming since as early as 2017, after China allegedly removed Palau from a list of approved destinations for its tour groups. The number of foreign arrivals dropped by nearly half, from around 160,000 to 100,000, according to Palau officials. It dealt a heavy blow to the island country's economy, as tourism accounts for around 40% of its GDP. While diving shop owner Vance didn't think Palau should switch ties to Beijing just for tourism income, he hoped Palau would establish closer economic ties with China.
I support both China and Taiwan. I hope in the future that both can work their differences out, including the US, so that way not only I, but the rest of Palau could benefit. Because, again, it's a huge market, and I think Palau can tap into it. But having these differences really limits us from moving forward as far as developing the country.
The sentiment is shared by other locals. 29-year-old Ekate is also an owner of a local diving center.
From a tourism perspective, we're open to the Chinese market, but we're also open to the Taiwan market. I think Palau has strong ties with Taiwan, and that's a good thing. But I don't think we should discriminate on what kind of tourism we bring into Palau, because Palau is a very international country.
China considers countries that still maintain official relations with Taiwan as interfering with its internal affairs.
任何国家、任何组织或个人都不要低估中国政府和中国人民捍卫国家主权和领土完整的坚强决心、坚定意志和强大能力，都不要妄想 在台湾问题上越界踩线，而不用付出代价。
Palau President Serango Whips Jr. accused China of economic coercion and weaponizing tourism to force his country to cut ties with Taiwan.
As one of the ambassadors told me from China, he said, with us, the sky is the limit. We have 1.4 billion people. The number of tourists we can give you, if you need 1 million tourists, we'll give you 1 million tourists. You want to build hotels, we'll build all the hotels you need. All you have to do is denounce Taiwan. And, we've made a very, strong stand that we will not do that.
But Mr. Whips and his policy for Taiwan will face a crucial test when the country goes to the polls in November. The Palauian leader will be seeking a second term in office, even as he warned against growing pressure within the government for the country to switch ties.
So as long as I'm president, I've already said no switching to China. I don't know if that's a good thing in this political year.
Meanwhile, in response to Mr. Whip's allegation that China will try to meddle in the country's upcoming election, a Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson said early June that China has no interest in interfering in the internal affairs of any country and urged Palau to uphold the One China principle.
And for more analysis, we are joined now by our Taiwan correspondent, Victoria Jane herself, as well as Alexander Huang. He's professor of strategy and wargaming at Tamkang University, both speaking to us from Taipei. Well, a warm welcome to you both. So I'm going to start things off with you first, Victoria. For our viewers out there, can you first perhaps help them understand why is Palau such a staunch supporter of Taiwan?
There are actually obviously two reasons. And the first reason is because Taiwan has been a loyal friend to Palau because it has been providing financial support as well as technical support, such as agriculture, fishery, and also animal farming to help develop local industries. And media reports has even said that Taiwan has provided $10 million a year to Palau, even though that Taiwan has declined to confirm that figure. Of course, there's another reason that is probably the most important reason is the close relations between Palau and the U.S. Now, Palau is one of the 3 freely associated states that provide exclusive military access to the U.S. in exchange for financial support as well as military support. Now, the U.S. has recently granted $890 million to Palau over a period of 20 years. So under these conditions, it actually refrained of Palau from forming ties with Beijing, especially given the current US-China rivalry.
Professor Huang, let's bring you in here. I just want to get your perspective. We've heard what Victoria said, that basically, Palau considers Taiwan a loyal friend. Palau has very close relations with the U.S. But still, I mean, isn't the current president's stance on Taiwan sort of like a risky gamble, considering China's growing economic and military influence in the region?
Well, I would not use the term gamble, but President Whips had been a long-term friend to Taiwan, and he had visited Taiwan several times. And we believe that it is, of course, it's a political factor, and almost everyone in Palau knows that the quarrels between Beijing and Taipei. But the key today is that whether for a long-term interest of Palau, whether it is a choice for them to consider that to fill in the Chinese tourists for their GDP growth, or they want to continue to stick with their values and long-lasting friendship with Taiwan. We know we cannot compete for the numbers of tourists with the other side of the Taiwan Strait, but we still consider that Palau is a loyal friend, and we will do whatever we can. In addition to more than a dozen of bilateral, agreements that have been signed between the two countries, we will continue to reinforce and improve our bilateral relationship to the best we can.
So, Victoria, we know that Nauru ditched Taipei for Beijing in January. The Solomon Islands, Kiribati, they did the same back in 2019. I don't know if you're keeping track of things. So how exactly are these countries faring after they've switched ties to China?
Well, China, of course, has provided economic incentives that it has promised. The Solomon Islands, for instance, now enjoys 0% tariffs on 98% of its products to China. This has greatly bolstered its trade surplus, as well as creating new jobs for its local people. But at the same time, there are also reports saying that China is not living up to its promise. Honduras, for instance, has reports saying that its shrimp exports to China has plunged because of the prices that have been cut in half compared to its exports to Taiwan. But given the circumstances, however, the conditions may vary with different countries. And Professor, is it possible for Taiwan to diplomatic allies to reduce to zero? And what would happen with that?
Well, it's up to the current government of Democratic Progressive Party to make a decision. I think, with only a dozen diplomatic relations left, I think the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Taiwan needs to reconsider and probably do more. We need to not only work for our diplomatic recognition, working with the United States and other allies to keep our diplomatic relationship. We also need to, talk directly to Palau and further identify the needs of that country and see what we can do in addition to what we have done. And I believe this is a time to show our sincerity and to show our ability to help friends. And Taiwan cannot tolerate another loss of diplomatic relationship. I think at this particular juncture and another 4 years of DPP government, I think the government should do more to keep our diplomatic relationship.
Also, Professor, there's a lot of talk about how perhaps upcoming elections could sort of change things in terms of Palau's relations with Taiwan. I mean, how do you see it? Where do you see it going, especially with the current President Whip's stance on maintaining ties with Taiwan as well, and how that aligns with the Palauan people?
Well, again, we honor and respect the decisions of the Palauan people to choose their own government and leader. But we sincerely hope, and that's part of my argument, that we need to understand the country better, and we need to send more of our friends and our people to sit down and observe, understand the country's political, economic situation better, and make a better decision. And we sincerely hope that in the coming election, the Palauan people will not be influenced by the maybe coercive actions or messages from Beijing.
So, Victoria, I mean, based on your interviews we've seen there with the local business owners like Polycarp and ECAT, what is the general sentiment on the ground? Is there a desire for these companies that they would rather make profits over, say, political principle?
Well, basically, the general sentiment that I get from the business owners is that they want to maintain good relations with both Taiwan and China. Now, of course, the country has benefited greatly from Taiwan's financial and technical support. There's no doubt about that. But they also want to have good relations with China, with or without the diplomatic relations, because it's very important that they said that China is the second largest economy, so that they want to gain greater market access to the Chinese market. And so with or without diplomatic relations, they're hoping that the government will do more to maintain good relations with both sides so that they can welcome more tourists from both sides of the straits. Now, Professor, I have a question for you. What is your take on the business sentiment among the Palauian people, or the dilemma that they face?
Well, the dilemma is obvious. As the president has said, President Whip said that, tourism should not be weaponized. And I want to raise the concern that, even with, Chinese incentives, I'm not sure whether the tourism that, Palau needs the most will be immediately or, for long-term purposes that China will ensure that how many tourists are allowed to visit Palau from China. China had weaponized the quota of tourists and used that as a diplomatic leverage against many countries. Palau is not alone, and we need to be very clear about the Chinese strategy and tactics that are using, tourism as part of their foreign policy leverage.
Well, thanks for all those pointers you've given us there. Alexander Huang, Professor of Strategy and Wargaming at Tamkang University. Also, a big thanks to our Taiwan correspondent, Victoria Jen, for your analysis.